Welcome to Nerd Social. I am Nathan.
And I'm Colin.
So, we're going to talk about What If Episode 7 tonight, and we also are going to talk about Titans Episode 3. So, What If Episode 7, entitled What If Thor Was a Only Child?
Only
And,
child. Yep.
yeah, and Titans Episode 3 of, sorry, Episode 9 of Season 3, entitled Souls. As always, we will go over our spoiler free thoughts about the episodes, and then we'll jump into spoiler thoughts. So, Colin, what do you think of What If Episode 7?
This was a very lighthearted episode. I really did enjoy it for what it was because a lot of the previous episodes that we talked about had very heavy themes
Mm-hmm.
of loss, of grief, of sadness. This was kind of like let's let loose type of episode. Let's just kind of go.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just be fun and humorous. So I really enjoyed that. So those people that really enjoyed Thor Ragnarok is gonna like this episode a lot because a lot of those themes from Thor Ragnarok got into this. Even though they did play a little bit of iterations of the original Thor movie, which was okay. It wasn't like a great, it was decent. And also I think that the other thing, um, and this is not a spoiler per se, it's just that I think that there was something that's off with the voice acting in
Mm-hmm.
some instances, even with the original characters.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt as though there was something that was kind of off. But then for this particular episode, I felt that all of the it maybe had to do with technology, it maybe has to do with voices or dubbing or whatever. I felt that the voices were very accurate to what you will hear from the live action movies. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about Tom Hiddleston, I'm talking about Natalie Portman, I'm talking about Chris Hemsworth. They're all kind of very accurate to live action. Whereas the way that I kind of heard, say, Peggy Carter or even other characters, they weren't. It was kind of slightly off with the exception of Chadwick Boseman. I think that Chadwick Boseman was okay, but there's something that's off. I don't know what it is, but I just think that the episode was very kind of again. It's almost like an extension of the third Thor movie. So I really had an enjoyable time watching it. After all that heavy-handed stuff that we've experienced over the last few episodes. So overall, I would say really great. But if for those that don't really like that type of stuff, that really don't like that, then this might be an episode where you might feel, oh, I really like more of the serious stuff, the dramatic stuff. This isn't for me, and I can definitely understand that perspective as well.
Yeah, I like the episode as well. As you said, it is definitely more lighthearted than the previous episodes. I I think that the writing and directing team of AC Bradley and
Mm.
I think it's Brian Andrews have been great so far, and this episode is no exception to that. The episode is pretty low stakes up until the very end when there when something very major happens that I won't spoil. So the Disney Plus summary of this is that Thor, without spoiling anything, because this is just a Disney synopsis. Thor, who never learned to be a good hero, throws an out of control intergalactic party on Earth. So that's the spoiler free summary that Disney um, posted. So this takes place around the same time as the original Thor movie
Mm-hmm.
in the timeline. So 2010, I believe.
11, 11,
2011.
yeah,
2011.
10, 11, yeah.
Yeah. So the I think I mean you said that the voice acting was a little off, but to me Hemsworth, Portman, and Kat Dennings, I think they did a pretty good job. They were pretty funny to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I could tell that those were the actors, and then they had some stand-in actors for other people, and I'm not going to get into who those stand-in actors are because it's kind of spoilers for what other characters going to show up. But
Mm-hmm.
I generally enjoyed the episode. It was interesting to see Thor cut loose even more than he did in the original Thor when his father called him spoiled,
Mm-hmm.
and stripped his powers away. It was also very cool to see, given that this is an intergalactic party. Uh, Basically, every MCU species that we've seen in every single movie show up for this party.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty
Yep.
cool. They this episode is like packed full of Easter eggs for every movie
Mm-hmm.
that we've seen where we included something in space. There is a pretty exceptional fight sequence. I won't say who or what
Mm-hmm.
who's involved. Well, Thor is involved, but there is this exceptional fight sequence in the middle of the episode, which really shows how like a heavy hitter like Thor would fight. Um, it was dynamic and it was explosive, and it sort of reminded me of anime, basically an anime episode, so like of like Dragon Ball Z or like
Mm-hmm.
One Punch or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because part of yeah. Yeah, one of those shows. It's one of the fights, and if anyone is knowledgeable about anime, one of those all out fights between two very very powerful beings. So that was pretty
Mm-hmm.
cool to see. I do have some questions about MCU continuity, given how the episode concluded, and I can get into that when we talk about spoilers in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I was generally I was satisfied with the episode. It was a fun low stakes episode. Like I said, I don't know if it would be like my favorite out of the seven, but it's
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably be in the middle of the pack because my
Mm-hmm.
favorite episode is still the Doctor Strange episode. It was an
Mm-hmm.
excellent episode. So yeah, so that's what I think about the episode without getting into spoilers. But to talk about the specifics, we have to actually talk about spoilers. So what we're going to do is actually get into spoiler talk. So if you haven't seen the episode, please go see the episode. I think we both like the episode. So after this, spoilers ahead. And all right, so I guess the general synopsis, like I said, was that Thor never learned to be a good hero and throws intergalactic party. That was the Disney Plus synopsis, the spoiler free synopsis. But specifically, like the title says, what if Thor was an only child? So at the beginning of this episode, we get a scene where Loki was actually returned
Mm.
to Laufey. So
Fluffy. Yep.
after defeating the frost giants in battle, Odin discovers the abandoned infant Loki and returns him to his father Laufey. Um, so years later, Odin's son Thor has become a boisterous, party loving prince. While
Mm-hmm.
Odin sleeps and Frigga is away, Thor travels to Earth to host a gigantic party. So yeah, we have without the adversarial sibling rivalry rather with Loki. He's not he's not in his guard. He's not much of a hero, so he decides to throw this rager on Earth, which which is ridiculous in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Ridiculous in a lot of different ways, but also fun. This also this episode. I should have mentioned this at the top. This episode sort of reminds me of Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yep.
This could this could this
Yes, it
could
does.
this could have been called Thor Odinson's day off. So because they have a bunch of touchstones that are very similar to that movie.
Yes.
So he once Odin goes into his Odin sleep, he goes to Earth because Heimdall doesn't really care about Earth. I guess he can see everything, but he can only really look in one direction at a time. So he's not really paying attention to what's going on Earth because it's of all the 9 realms, it's the least interesting to him apparently.
Yeah.
So that's why Thor decides to set up camp and have a worldwide party on Earth. So as I said, this episode takes place around the same time as Thor, which you said was 2011, right? So we have a Jane Foster. We have Jane Foster in this episode, and we also have Darcy, played by Natalie Portman and Kat Dennings. So they factor into this episode.
Yeah.
What did you think of their portrayals in this episode? I had some varying thoughts about Foster. So like Foster and also Darcy. So after Thor arrives on the planet, after Thor arrives on the planet, he attracts the attention of Jane Foster even before he arrives, actually, and Darcy, who join the party, and they start to get close, basically. So what did you think? What did you think of them in their addition to this episode?
Yeah, I just think that it was a little off in some ways because, here's this brilliant scientist who's kind of like, in some ways they kind of played up and exaggerated the doe eye effect, that she had from the Thor movie, but it's even like multiplied by 10, or 100 times. So it was very interesting in that sense. That it was like she was able to kind of let loose in some ways as well.
Yeah.
But like the thing is that in the movie she wasn't like that. It was more like, oh my gosh, he is really handsome and he's like a god. But it was googly eyed. But like in this one, it was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna let loose and just like go with the flow and things like that. So it's kind of a little bit off character, slightly, but I found it very interesting, and not that anything wrong with that. I was just find it very interesting, and in that sense, I think for Darcy as well, having seen her in WandaVision. It was very fascinating that she was kind of like more like the WandaVision character, but then what happened was that she got into a shotgun winning with Howard the Duck, which I found hilarious. I was just like, oh wow, that's scary. That's amazingly hilarious.
So that happened. I feel like that. Yeah, I think that was a little out of character given. So like I don't know that. To my reading of the episode, I don't know that the way that they portrayed Jane Foster was that far off of what, because she was sort of I'm a scientist, but also you're really pretty, basically. Thor, you're really pretty, but Kat Dennings' character Darcy Lewis was far more acerbic. So I don't see how it was sort of out of character that this duck basically negged her, and said something about her being a brunette, and then she fell for that. Like it seems out of character that like someone who's that strong or that acerbic that would fall for someone negging her, and I don't know how anyone falls for that, but apparently people do, like or like people like People do fall for that, and end up with people who are just awful to them. So that wasn't a great part of the episode. Them getting married,
but
it seems a little ridiculous.
Yeah, but I think that maybe that the way that I kind of rationalized it was that for him, the way that I remember Howard Duck was that he was kind of like the same type of character in terms of the acerbic character, like wisecracker type of thing, and maybe that kind of like it's almost as though they have a very similar personality, and that's kind of what. But of course, it's a 30-minute episode, so they didn't
get
it very well.
Yeah, that wasn't explained very well. It was basically he immediately insults her, and apparently getting insulted seemed to be an attraction. There wasn't enough time to actually suss out why they were attracted to each other. So I mean, I can buy that, but it wasn't in the text. It wasn't in the episode. I buy that because he is acerbic and she is acerbic. I get to see those personalities being attracted to each other, but people coming in and not knowing that information. The episode didn't really give you information. All the episode really gave you was that he was crappy to her, and that was enough to get her attracted to him, which wasn't really a great message, but yeah. So I feel like this was a whole lot of they either say they. I think the saying is show don't tell, but this didn't show or tell anything, and either. I think they were just making leaps based upon what they know about the characters. So yeah.
Yeah, but I also think that they just kind of used it as a gag. I mean, I really believe that it was a gag type of thing, that they're like, oh, let's just kind of put them together and just like kind of like whatever, because it's just random. And I mean, not so much random, but like it's like kind of like, oh yeah, let's just kind of do that. Let's just be crazy, and they did it. So maybe that's probably their rationale behind it, and just. It reminds me of The Hangover. All the shotgun weddings and stuff like that. So
yeah, I think that's what they were reaching for as well. The Hangover, and also they were also probably referencing the Howard the Duck movie, where he's not with many ducks. He's with a bunch of human women. Exactly. which is weird, but yeah. So I think that was what they were doing. But I think it would have been more effective if they didn't set up him being specifically like crappy to her, and then they get married. They could have been some acerbic banter back and forth. They could have been something a little bit better than that. So yeah, that for me that was a little annoying. It was a small annoyance, but yeah. So after the all night binger, during which Jane and Thor get tattoos. Her with a tattoo saying magic, and then his with a tattoo saying science. I didn't notice this until I took the screenshot. Is that the word science is actually pixelated? It's not. It's like a computer graphic font on his hand here, which I'd imagine would be really difficult to actually do, but for a tattoo artist. But whatever. There. So they wake up the next morning, and in a hotel room, all of them are like passed out, and we see Rocket in the sink here, which. So Rocket doesn't have any lines, but this is what I was talking about earlier when I said that basically everyone in space shows up to this party. So we see Kree at some point. We see most of the Guardians of Galaxies. We also see the Ravagers. We see the Grandmaster and Topaz. We see Korg, and Korg has a couple of lines. So Taika Waititi actually is doing some voice acting in this episode. So yeah. Maria Hill shows up, and she asks them to stop partying, and then and that doesn't go over well with Thor, and so she tries to talk to Jane Foster and Darcy, because and the only reason that she's in charge right now is because they knocked out Nick Fury. Korg was doing like a cannonball or something like that, and he got knocked out, and he's in a coma right now. So they started to discuss what to do with Thor, and And I think at this point Jane is sort of in a tank for Thor, and she's trying to tell Maria that he's not that much of a threat, but the party is destroying the Earth. Like I think in this same scene, in the same scene, Coulson mentions that the party starts to move to like Pennsylvania, Dutch country. So the Amish are starting to get in the party as well.
Oh boy!
So
yeah.
So
that was really amusing. I mean, I like I said, for those in my non-spoiler part, if you are not into the lighthearted, like partying type, Ferris Bueller hangover type of movie, this is not going to be the show for you. I mean, this is not going to be the episode for you. Sorry.
I mean, although there is something, if you don't like that stuff, that's fine. But also in the middle of it, there is, like I said, a giant fight, and there's a giant fight because what Maria Hill does is call Captain Marvel. So Captain Marvel shows up. Captain Marvel shows up, and she immediately starts to confront Thor, and and they kind of set up a joke where it seems like he's going to say, there's a name for what you are, and it seems like they're going to say, he's going to say B, but he calls her a party pooper.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway,
that's the Disney version of B.
Yeah. Before that though, because he didn't grow up with Loki, he has no animosity towards Loki. So just before Captain Carter comes to bust up the party, Loki shows up, and he's actually in like frost giant size. The name of this episode could have actually been what if Loki wasn't small, because I assume that in this universe he wasn't small, so Odin just returned him.
Right.
Because he's a giant, he's a frost giant here. And they have a very like friendly relationship, and they actually say they actually think of each other as brothers, which is it's an easy term to throw around if you're not vying for the same crown. They both have their own crown.
Of course.
So they don't have any sort of like animosity towards each other. So that's interesting. So right after this, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have a question about this, because in the movies we know that Loki is the size of Thor, but what happened? Is it because he had some growth spurt? So is that how it works in the comics? I don't quite.
That's what I was saying though. What the name of the episode is what if Thor was an older child? But the name of the episode probably should have been what if Loki wasn't small? Like what if when Odin found him, he wasn't like, I think they called him like a runt, which is kind of a derogatory term. So what if
right.
So I could only assume that the Loki that Odin found was not small, so he just immediately returned the baby. He was just a giant baby.
I see what you mean.
So yeah, that's why he did, because that was Odin's rationale for taking Loki, because he was much smaller than he was supposed to be, right? If he's not very small, then there's no reason to take the baby. You return the baby, right?
Got it.
Understood. So that's what I gathered from this. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so they establish that they're friends, and then as I mentioned, Captain Carter shows up, and they immediately start beating on each other. I mean, she tells him to break up things, and he doesn't. He makes fun of her and calls her a party pooper. And then that's when we get a bunch of like I said, anime-like scenes, which are pretty awesome. Them fighting each other around the world. So it's like half anime and half Looney Tunes, because they punch them. Yeah. They punch each other into other parts of the world, and then we see. And then we see the name of on the map of where they're being punched. So yeah, it's
yeah. That was kind of weird to me, because at first I was so kind of like, what are they trying to do with the letters on the countries? Because obviously, you're not going to have that. That obviously, if you are from space, you're not going to see the letters of the country,
but also
there.
But also when you show up in Germany, you don't have a title card that says Germany either. So like when they change scenes in a movie, they usually have a title card that says where they are. So I think that's what they were just doing. They were just putting the title card, or they're just putting the title card on the map, so it's kind of give orientation to the audience. So I think that's what they were doing. We just never seen Disney do it like this. They usually just put it on the front instead of or in front of the scene. This is more like how James Gunn did it in the Suicide Squad movie. It was kind of in the scene, as opposed to
yes,
as opposed to whatchamacallit. So yeah, they go back and forth, and then eventually they end up in the I think the desert in the U.S. and then we see this scene where Thor tries to fry her, and she basically absorbs all the energy. Doesn't really phase her. This really reminded me of the Avengers movie. If you remember, Thor tried to do this in the Avengers movie too. He tried to like fry Tony, and it just charged him up. So yeah. So that was interesting. The way this first part of the battle actually ends in a stalemate because Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, she doesn't want to blow a hole in the middle of the planet. So if she actually unleashed on him, she would blow a hole in the planet. So the way that this ends is that she puts, Thor puts her in sort of a timeout by putting Mjolnir on her, similar to the way that he did with Loki in the movie.
Loki,
yeah. He puts the hammer on top of him, and he can't lift the hammer. The only problem with this is that, like I said, this is one of the continuity issues, right? The hammer existed, and the hammer existed before the movie, and it was Thor's primary weapon, but the unable to lift it thing was a curse that Odin put on the hammer. So there's no reason why at this point, because there's no curse on the hammer, that there's no reason why Captain Marvel shouldn't be able to lift the hammer, because Odin didn't put the curse on the hammer, saying that only if the person is worthy can he lift the hammer. Because at this point, there's no way that this version of Thor is worthy, so he wouldn't be able to lift the hammer. So it makes no sense that this pinned her. But anyway, I guess it's a minor quibble, but it was a little bit outside. It was a continuity issue.
Got it.
So I think after this, they confer back on the helicarrier, and Darcy suggests that Danvers fight him in a more remote area where she can kind of let loose, and so Jane is concerned that he's going to get killed. So she reaches out to Heimdall to get him to pick her up, so she can talk to Frigga, and Frigga talks to Jane. And meanwhile, back on Earth, Thor is still wrecking the planet. We even see Surtur from Thor Ragnarok trying to chat.
This was extremely hilarious, and actually they used Clancy Brown's voice. I actually went to the credits and saw that it was Clancy Brown who did the voice of Surtur in Thor Ragnarok, and this was hilarious. I laughed out loud when this happened because it was just so funny. I probably the biggest laugh I have had during the whole What If scene was because of this scene right here. It was just so amazing.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was amazing and also ridiculous as well. So yeah, once once Frigga catches up with Thor, he lies to her and basically says that he's on a foreign exchange trip and he's learning. So they have a long period of time between her getting back from her vacation back to Heimdall and then Heimdall sending her to Earth. Seem to be a long.
Yeah.
I know light travel isn't instantaneous, and I don't know how far Asgard is supposed to be away from Earth. In the movies, it seems instantaneous, but also they could just be cutting the scene. But it did seem like conveniently long because in the time that she was traveling, Thor tries to get people to clean up, and the Grandmaster and Topaz are the first people like to leave. Like yet have no interest in helping to clean up. Drax and the Ravagers call him like a party pooper, so he has to like pull out the Thor lightning to kind of get their attention, to get them to clean up. So they one of the things that happened during the fight with Captain Marvel was him knocking down Stonehenge. So he needs to put all that stuff back, and he kind of overcorrects and also puts back the leaning Tower of Pisa as well.
Correctly.
puts it straight.
Yeah.
And when Frigga shows up, he's doing this study group thing, which is which like I said, it's kind of straight out of not just Ferris Bueller, but like there are a bunch of movies like this where the kids are like letting loose and they need to get things back to normal before the parents show up. Even Captain Marvel tries to help him out there at the end by providing him a tablet with things from NPR and stuff like that, with a little wink and a nod at the end, which is pretty funny. But Frigga figures it out because of his hammer has beads and underwear and all kinds of other stuff on it. So not fooled. That's pretty much the end of the episode, except for Jane prompts him to ask her out, and the Watcher says they live happily ever after. It was like, oh wait, I must have spoken too soon. So this is another one of the continuity issues that I had with this episode. So if this is Ultron, and it seems like it is Ultron, there are a couple things. How did Ultron get the Soul Stone? You have to kill someone that you love to get the Soul Stone. He doesn't love anyone.
That's a good one. That's a good one there. Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me how he would have had. He has in his getup here. He has the stones embedded in his body, similar to the stone that's embedded in the head of Vision. But this one right here, is the Soul Stone. Sorry. This one right here is the Soul Stone. So if
right,
you would imagine that he would have had. I mean, to get the Soul Stone from the Red Skull, and it wasn't even the Red Skull that was keeping it. Like he was just the keeper of the thing. It's not like he could have beat up the Red Skull and taken it. It's the Soul Stone wasn't going to let Thanos have the stone unless he gave something up. So. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I have a theory on that. I mean, it may be in this universe that they had. I mean, who knows how Ultron got created in this universe, And also, I think it's he has the Vision's face, so I think that he evolved actually. So he was actually successful in evolving himself to that higher form with the vibranium.
Yeah.
So. I mean, I think that there might have been something going on with either Banner or with Stark that he was able to trade their souls for the Soul Stone. It could be that, I am not sure, or it could be they go back to the comics where Ant-Man, Hank Pym was the original creator of Ultron, so that could be the other thing. But they never again showed that. In context. So who knows? I mean, they may address that in the next last last couple of episodes, they may address that. But yeah, I think that right now you're right in that, how the heck would he get the Soul Stone if he doesn't have anyone that he can trade a soul for? But it could
Yeah.
be, it may not just be out of love. It may be just that it's. But it was established in Infinity War and also in Endgame that it was out of love.
Yeah.
So but it may not be just out of love. It just may be a soul for a soul.
Maybe. So I don't know if they're. I doubt that they're going to go with Hank Pym created Ultron. I know that's what's in the comics, but all the episodes so far in this series have been, what if we twist something that people already know from the movie? So I don't think they're going to twist. They're going to twist that too much, because there's just too much of it. There's like a generational gap between Tony and Hank Pym in this universe, whereas they were peers in the comic books. So
Right.
it wouldn't make sense that Hank Pym would have created Ultron. I will say that it does appear that in the universe that this Ultron is coming from, the Avengers weren't able to keep the Vision body away from him. So the body that he was creating,
Right.
the body that he was creating with the Soul Stone in the middle of it, was actually used by Ultron. So that I think this is Ultron. Now it's possible. I mean, the only thing that I can think of is that it's possible because he had the Soul Stone in his head. He had, and he might be more advanced than Vision, or he might be more calculating than Vision. Maybe he was able to use the Soul Stone to connect to the other stones. Like he became aware of them. So maybe through the soul, so maybe through the sorry, not the Soul Stone, the Mind Stone is in
The
his head.
Mind
The
Stone.
Mind Stone
Okay.
through the Mind Stone in his head, he was able to connect to all the other stones, in some way. So maybe that's how he was able to circumvent the killing someone to get the stones sort of thing, because he was able to
I
locate
got you.
the other stones through the Mind Stone. I don't know. That's the only thing that would make sense, because, like I said, they established in, like you said, and like I said, they established in two different movies that you need to give it someone you love. So unless they write a line of dialogue explaining how he circumvented that, it's a plot hole. Uh,
Mm.
the other thing is, the other plot hole is that they established in I think Loki, that the stones don't work outside of their dimension. So the fact that he's bringing all this hardware to this dimension, to this Thor party dimension, is all well and good, but the stone shouldn't work for him in this dimension, right? They should only work in his dimension. Because you remember that drawer of Infinity Stones that didn't do
Yeah.
anything. So I don't know. That's another thing that needs to be explained. Unless they were trying to show by that the stones don't seem to work inside the TVA, but it also seems to mean that they don't work in general outside of their universe. I mean, they're out, they're plucked from their universe, so they don't work outside of their universe. I don't know. That's another
Yeah,
plot
that's
hole.
kind of yes. I mean, the way that I saw when he entered, I was thinking more of what Thanos did with the Space Stone, just like transporting. I mean, yeah. I mean,
This is too.
it's
This is
hard to
this is
say.
too. This is
Yeah,
too
that'll be
early.
too soon, though.
This is too early.
Yeah,
This is too early for him
yeah.
to exist in this universe, right? This is like 2011. Tony wouldn't have created him yet, so he had to not only travel back in time from another universe, but he had to travel back in time and also to another universe to get here. Um. So yeah. So
It could be that it could be what you said, Nathan. That the TVA is like kind of like in the Infinity Stones are immune, but the truth of the matter is, it could be that they kind of did create this plot hole, expectedly as well.
yeah. We will see. I'm interested. The last two episodes seem to be what we talked about before. I think we're back and forth over the last couple weeks whether or not there was going to be zombies or Ultron, but it seems that it's going to be Ultron, similar to the Hyundai commercial, I guess. So the
Hmm.
Hyundai commercial did seem to have some relevant intel inside of it. So this is going to be what moves the watcher to not just watch. He's going to actually, you know, try to intervene and see what he could do here. So we shall see how
Mm-hmm.
the team that he assembles, because we know Party Thor is going to be on that team, but we also know that the Supreme Doctor Strange
Mm-hmm.
Supreme is going to be on that team. So he's going to pluck him from his prison in the universe that he destroyed. And Peggy Carter is going to be on that team, and also a bunch of other people like T'Challa, Star-Lord is going to be on that team as well. So
Mm-hmm.
we shall see how they stack up, and why he pulls these heroes specifically
Mm-hmm.
together. So yeah. Any, I guess, final thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, just
About it.
overall, this is again kind of lighthearted episode. I think that they really needed something like this because the last depressing, like very sad type of themes that are happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think that they really need. I think this was kind of similar to the T'Challa Star Lord one, a lot less in terms of humor, but at the same time, I was a little bit more um, free and loose and lighthearted. So we were able to at least write that in to this so far, because I really do believe that the next two episodes are probably going to be going back to the more dramatic, epic type of feel that you're going to see in maybe like Avengers Endgame or Avengers Infinity War.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's move on to Titans, episode 9, entitled Souls. So we can get, we as I said, start with our spoiler-free thoughts. So what did you think of this episode, Souls?
This this was a very strange episode. I think that I still liked it. Not to say that I didn't like it.
Mm.
It was just very strange because you're almost like you almost feel as though you are the characters being popped into the world, and you have no idea what's going on, and you're like, but you're intrigued, and you're like interesting mystery, and you're trying to unravel the mystery here. I like the fact that they took that risk here because, if it doesn't work, then it's going to be bad. If it works, it's actually going to be pretty cool. And I just felt as though the episode was pretty cool, even though there were still some questions that I had about it. And I was like, what's going on here? Why is this happening? And things like that. I still enjoyed the whole episode overall. And I think that and we talked about this in the previous episodes that if we focus and kind of hone in on some of the characters, it may be effective. So, for example, we asked about that with Blackfire and with Connor and with Koriand'r.
Mm-hmm.
They had a specific episode where they were very much featured. So I think for this episode, it was very similar vein in that, and I think that they do some of their best work when they really just focus and not focus on the Bat Family, even though that might that did somewhat appear, but I'm not going to get into who it was. But in any case, overall, I say pretty good execution, even though it's kind of weird at times. I think I still enjoyed it overall.
Yeah, I liked the episode as well. The spoiler-free synopsis from HBO Max is that after waking up on a mysterious train, Tim Drake teams with two familiar heroes to locate an elusive bridge back to the land of the living. And meanwhile, Rachel grapples with her own powers in a desperate attempt to resurrect Donna. So I mean, they sort of tell what's going on in the episode, but they don't give away too much in the episode in their synopsis. So we saw Tim get shot at the end of the last episode. So
Yes.
this follows Tim for a bit, but it also follows Rachel for the first time in this entire season. We haven't seen Rachel this season at
Mm-hmm.
all. So this is the first time we see Rachel. She's on Themyscira,
Mm-hmm.
trying to, as the synopsis says, resurrect Donna Troy, who is Wonder
Mm-hmm.
Girl. So This episode was, I think, good for me. It was a little uneven, but it wasn't terrible. I think it's generally a good episode. I appreciate the focus on different characters, like you said. I appreciated a move away from the Bat family and a focus on Rachel and Tim in this episode, because they haven't had Rachel at all. We haven't seen Rachel at all except for this episode, and Tim has had very little play throughout the entire season. So it was good that they were able to focus on those two characters during this episode. The budget of this show sort of showed itself in this episode as well, though, because they were on Themyscira, and the Themysciran scene specifically looked a little weak, especially given what we've seen in other media, because we've seen Themyscira rendered very beautifully within the Wonder Woman movie, and also inside of the Snyderverse version of Justice League. So this show doesn't have the same budget, so it seemed to cheap out a lot on the Themysciran scene. So they didn't work as well for me as the stuff that Tim was doing. But it was still good for me in general. So yeah, that's my spoiler free thoughts about the episode. To get into the specifics, we have to actually spoil the episode. So if you haven't seen the episode, go and see the episode. We will, because we're gonna jump into spoiler talk, and we're gonna spoil the heck out of the episode and talk about some of the specifics. So spoilers ahead. All right. So this episode actually begins with a scene. The Bat family member that you didn't mention during the spoiler-free episode is Bruce Wayne. So this episode begins and ends with Bruce. Well, it begins and sort of ends with Bruce, because there's like an epilogue with Hank, but I'll get to that in a minute. So Bruce is establishing his will, and we don't know why he's establishing his will or why he's finalizing his will, but it's very ominous. We find out later why he's finalizing his will. But it starts with Bruce. He has I don't know. It looks like a castle somewhere in Europe, where he's held up. Probably one of the many properties that the Wayne Enterprises or the Wayne family owns. So he's establishing his will, and then we cut to I think Rachel on Themyscira. So Rachel and Themyscira is around a funeral pyre, a funeral slab where Donna is sitting, and all the Themyscirans are kind of around Donna's body, holding vigil, hoping to bring her back, and nothing is actually working, and that's sort of where we leave Rachel at the beginning of the episode. We see her starting to use her powers, and the character, what is her name? Let me see if I can find her name. Mira, played by Tanika Davis. She actually happened to play a character inside of the show Jupiter Legacy earlier this year, before it was canceled. So the young lady who's black, she tells her not to use her power. And then later on, there's a training scene between the two of them, which was pretty well shot. So the director of this episode, I think I mentioned, was Boris Majowski. And it's written by Richard Hatem. Richard Hatem is actually one of the producers on the show, and he's written a lot of the episodes, or written several of the episodes, but he's generally responsible for the tone of the show. But Boris hasn't done a lot of directing. Like, most of his directing has been this show, and you can kind of see that he's a weaker, or at least a newer director, mostly because of the Themyscira scenes. Like I said, as a director, he could have worked with the set decorator to make some of this stuff more interesting. I also don't particularly like the costume design that they decided to go with here. I don't know that they necessarily needed to make them as scantily clad as Zack Snyder made the Amazon.
Oh gosh, yeah.
As Zack Snyder made the Amazons, but it makes no sense that they're on an island and they're fighting in like full on robes. There's not a whole lot of you can't really move very well in those in what they're wearing. Yeah, the most of his work before has been in cinematography. So he's been a cinematographer on the show in the past. He did cinematography for Star Trek Discovery short called Runaway, and also he's done cinematography for Taken, the show, and also 12 Monkeys. But he hasn't done a lot of directing.
Oh, wow.
He hasn't done a lot of directing, and you kind of can tell from this episode. I think he does a serviceable job, but it's nothing like spectacular to me anyway. So anyway, they fight back and forth, and then we jump to Tim on the train, and then Tim is met by Donna on the train, dead Donna, because they're both dead, and they're on this train that's moving forward towards the afterlife. They escape the train, and they're not immediately, but almost immediately attacked by some sort of like wraiths trying to suck their souls or whatever.
They're eaters.
Maybe Death Eaters.
To borrow another Warner Brothers property,
Yeah.
you know?
Maybe Death Eaters. So they are rescued by Hank, who is also dead. There's a lot of dead people in this show.
Yes.
They've killed off a lot of people, or try. So after they band together against the ghouls that's still the dead, and then Hank tries to convince the team of the group to escape to the afterlife, and that's pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. So once they drive off and they get to this bar, there's a very interesting conversation between Hank and Donna about whether or not they want to go back, and which I found this is, like I said, the better elements in this episode were the Tim Drake parts of this episode, the Tim Drake, Donna, Hank parts of this episode. Even though Tim Drake wasn't part of this conversation, the whole conversation where Donna was saying that she felt like she died a senseless death, like she died at a she didn't die trying to save the world, she died at a carnival. It reminded me of, for those of you who are fans of Star Trek The Next Generation, it reminded me of an episode called Yesterday's Enterprise, where Tasha Yar said that she died a senseless death because she died in season 1, I believe, by being killed by Armus, which in the episode Skin of Evil. So it reminded me of that conversation that Tasha Yar had with Guinan about dying a senseless death. Which was it was interesting to me. And you also get a little bit of character development here with Tim. He said that he died a coward. He wanted to be a hero, and he died running away from the situation instead of facing it. And I feel like I generally don't. I generally am annoyed by the choices that the creators of the show make. Like they don't necessarily always, not generally, but I'm going to say the majority of the time, let's say 2/3 of the time, they make decisions to be different that aren't better than the source material. This I think is better than the source material, because I think Tim's origin story in the comics was pretty straightforward. He figured out who Tim Drake was, and he figured out who Batman was, and because of his brilliance, he became Robin. Which they sort of did here as well, but they added the extra element of him feeling like he could be a crime fighter, but when faced with a real situation, he ran away and he got killed. So him wanting to fight his way back to the life, the land of the living, so he could prove himself is a more is a more compelling origin story for Tim than he's just smart and he figured it out in Batman, what you call it, because they had that part, and they also, in adding this part, makes him altogether a more interesting character, and you can kind of see where his heart is going to be going forward now that he's had this adversity at the very beginning of his crime fighting career. So I appreciated that as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I do. Like, having said that, I think that it definitely. I really liked his character even from the beginning, like him figuring out who was Dick Grayson, who was Nightwing. I think that was really, really cool in many ways. It did remind me a little bit of Dark Knight Rises, where John Blake, character played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, was figured out who Batman was. So it reminded me of that a little bit in some ways, which was still good. I mean, not to say that it wasn't good, but I think that you're right that he has a reason to go back. Like, it's not like some like random reason or some convoluted thing. No, they made it pretty seamlessly, and they showed. They showed the progression of why he wanted to do that. But the only thing that I was kind of taken aback by, and this is just a very slight kind of criticism of, how did he get on the train? It's like, maybe it just didn't make any sense because how the heck is he able to be on the same train and Donna Troy was like right there, and then all of a sudden Hawk showed up, like all randomly showed up. So I mean, there was a lot of coincidences in that. But because I think that it was pretty compelling story, I kind of let that go as I kind of kept watching it. I let that go. But at first, I was like, "What's going? Why? Why is that? Why is this even possible?" And going back to kind of like the beginning of the episode, why is he trying to die? Like, why is Bruce Wayne trying to? Unless it's just because it's just an inconvenient plot thing to say Titans. It's not called Bruce Wayne or Batman, so that's why we don't need a Batman right now. So that's probably why they're doing it. But other than that, I mean, again, like I said, it didn't detract me from the episode itself. I also like the fact that it was kind of in the black and white type of thing. Black and white sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't work, to various degrees. But I think that having it in that type of dynamic was pretty interesting to me, to kind of show that type of that you're in another type of world, that you are kind of different, and that kind of old school. He was in that Hawk was in an old school car. I think it was a Thunderbird, but that was pretty cool kind of dynamic. Reminded me of Sin City a little bit.
Yeah. So I think that I'm going to speak to the Bruce Wayne thing in this. I'm going to put a pin in that and speak to that in a little bit. But the train didn't really bother me because, I mean, no one knows what the afterlife looks like, and it was a convention that they were going with. You can't look back. You have to go forward. So they're all on a train. It was a little convenient that he died just now, and Donna died almost a half a year ago, or like months ago in the timeline here, and they were on the same train. But who knows how long you're supposed to travel on this train until you get to the afterlife? So maybe it's fine that they were on the same train. It's weird that Hank died after Donna, and he found his way off the train before she did. But whatever. All that was fine. I mean, like, if anyone watched Doom Patrol, the episodes from Doom Patrol this week, they dropped 3 episodes, and one of the episodes they happened to go to the afterlife as well, and they conceived the afterlife completely differently than they thought of the afterlife in this episode, and which is fine, even though there's 2 DC properties, they're technically supposed to be in 2 different universes. So maybe the afterlife in that universe is the way that they did it in Doom Patrol. The afterlife here is the way that they did it here. But
Yeah.
but whenever in fantasy or genre stuff they end up in the afterlife, they always have to come up with some sort of convention to explain something that no one can really explain because no one knows what happens when you die. I didn't really bump up against that too much. I once they put these three together, it was more interesting to me what they were talking about and the conversations, the philosophical conversations that they were having about life and what the worth of life is, and also what a hero is and what the purpose of a hero is. All that stuff was more interesting to me. That conversation was more interesting to me, and I understand that they had to sort of put them in this extreme situation to have those kind of existential philosophical conversations, because inside of the course of a regular episode, it'd be kind of weird if all the characters started talking about what is it to be a hero. It'd be kind of didactic and it would be kind of preachy to do that, but it makes more sense for these characters to be all reflecting on these sort of heady philosophical things after they're dead. So so the circumstances of around how they're dead, or what the rules are of the afterlife, didn't really bother me as much that much, because all of it would be made up because no one knows. So there's no suspension. So there's a suspension of disbelief there for me. Before we get to Bruce, we actually go back to the island for a little bit, because what Rachel does is she tries to use her powers to resurrects Donna, and she's caught by Lydia, and then Lydia she impanels a tribunal to figure out what to do with Rachel, and she has a punishment. Her punishment is that she's supposed to put some rocks together, which is representing a soul, and she tries to do that for a very, very long time, and she struggles with it, and she eventually gives up on Donna, and that's basically the end of her storyline until. But back in the netherworld, Donna, Hank, and Tim are fighting off these ghouls to get across this bridge. Hank gets left behind, and Donna resurrects herself. She doesn't actually need anyone else to help her resurrect herself. So, speaking of what you talked about at the end of the episode, I did have the one thing that I felt was weird was that Donna is resurrected by going across this bridge or whatever mechanism they use to bring people back to life. It's always going to be whatever, because it's going to vary and no one knows or whatever. So they go across this bridge. They all come back to life. What didn't make any sense to me is that as soon as she's brought back to life in Themyscira, she zooms to whatever castle Bruce is in to save him from burning himself.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
How did she get there so quickly? How did she know Bruce was about to? How did she know Bruce was about to kill himself? That didn't make any sense to me whatsoever.
Why? Why would she go there? Why? Yeah.
The Bruce killing himself thing made sense to me in the context of what he did earlier in the season. He killed the Joker. He's not a person who he specifically put a code up for himself to be above killing, and he killed the Joker, and he let himself slip and kill the Joker. So I think it was out of depression and desperation that he decided to kill himself. So that made sense to me. That wasn't out of character for who Bruce. He was probably torturing himself because he killed the Joker, and he needed the release of I guess death. So that's why he tried to get all of his affairs in order at the beginning of the episode with the will. I actually zoomed in and I tried to see it, what he was leaving, but it was just the first two lines. You didn't really see where things were going. It was of the will. You just saw that it was a will. And then after Donna saves Bruce again inexplicably, because who I feel like her waking up and her first thought being Bruce is weird, but
Yes.
there we have a nice little epilogue at the end with Hawk and Dove, um, or Hank and Don, his brother who died in a previous season. He died in season one. We actually never saw Don except for in flashbacks in season one, because the dove that was part of the Titans was always his girlfriend Dawn. But Dawn is there, and he meets up with his brother, and I guess they're going to be crusaders in the afterlife. So I think this might be.
Right.
I wonder if this will see Hank again, but it seems like this was the epilogue to his character. We're not going to see him again. He's a crime fighter in the afterlife, helping people who are being chased by ghouls. But like at a certain point, those ghouls are not necessarily. I mean, I don't know. It wasn't clear whether or not those ghouls were just returning people to the train, or they were sucking their life force, or they were, because I understand why they were running for them, because they wanted to get back to the land of the living. But not everyone wants to get back to the land of the living. Some people want to have their afterlife. So I don't know that they need to save everyone from dying, because some people that's the natural progression, right? You live and then you die. So I don't know. I don't know if we'll see them again. It'd be interesting if we do see them again. But I think that the reason that they wrote it that way, bringing this actor back that we haven't seen since season one when they did the flashbacks, is that they were buttoning up this character, and we're not going to see Hank again. We're not going to see Hawk or Dove again. So.
Yeah, I think that definitely it was a very romance moment, and it was pretty cool that he was definitely very very emotional about it, and it was definitely a very touching scene at the end that they're off to their next adventure, and just let's see what happens to them in the future and things, kind of like a very hopeful and optimistic type of thing that they played with that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, definitely. So yeah, I like the episode. I appreciate. I mean, it was the last couple episodes have been good, which is good, because there was definitely some terrible ones in there at the beginning. I think we have maybe 4 more episodes. If they're going to do 13 episodes,
they got 13. Yeah,
there's 4 more episodes, so they'll be overlapping with Doom Patrol, which like I said earlier, dropped 3 episodes this week. So every week they'll drop Doom Patrol and Titans episodes until they're done with Titans episodes. So yeah, the HBO Max is going all in on the DC stuff. I mean, they're doing a bunch of genre stuff, because they also released a radio drama for Batman earlier this week as well. So like they're doing on HBO Max, they're doing a Batman radio drama. So they're doing a lot of Bat Family, or like not just Bat Family, like DC stuff right now. So we'll see over the next couple of weeks what they do. For me, I'm definitely still in it for Titans. I mean, the story is still interesting. I'm still interested to see how they wrap it up. But just the first 3 episodes I've seen of Doom Patrol, I've enjoyed more than the first 3 episodes of Titans. So, and I understand I understand why another person wouldn't like those episodes of Doom Patrol, because they're kind of quirky and weird, and there might not be that much action. But that is what the show has always been. It's always been like offbeat and quirky, and very deep character examinations, and I really appreciate what they're doing in Doom Patrol when they're doing these character examinations, and they do that to a certain extent in this show as well. That's why I like this episode, because they did that to a great deal with Hank, Tim, and Donna. Not so much with Rachel. I mean, they they did a little bit. I mean, she had to let go of trying to resurrect Donna and stop being petulant, but I don't know that they were as successful with with showing the character work for Rachel as they were with the other characters in this episode.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward. I haven't seen Doom Patrol before. I've known of it because I think part of it was that it was in DC Universe and I didn't have it. Now it's on HBO Max, I'm definitely going to kind of definitely watch the first 3 episodes, being new to the series, and I'm going to see how I think that you're right. That HBO Max is going all in. I think I don't know why they try to do it in the middle of Titans. It's kind of weird in some senses as to why they did that.
Yeah,
it's also very similar to
they draw attention from each other.
And also very similar to what Disney Plus did with Star Wars Visions. I know that they dropped like a bunch of episodes, and I saw it on Disney Plus, so I haven't even checked out that yet either. So so there's definitely a lot of interesting content that they're crossing over, and probably just like competing with each other as well. So it'll be very interesting, because they don't release ratings anyway for streaming shows anyway, except for Nielsen. Nielsen releases some stuff, but it's like 4 weeks behind. So but you don't really get to see the full picture.
And Nielsen isn't tracking HBO Max, so you'll never know how HBO Max stuff is doing. So yeah, it's interesting. So there's a lot of genre stuff going on right now. There, like you said, the Star Wars Vision stuff. I've only watched 1 episode of the. They dropped the entire season of all they dropped the entire anthology of the Star Wars Vision as opposed to the What If anthology, which is also an anthology. They're dropping it week by week. I don't know what the difference the decisions were there. Maybe because this anthology, the Star Wars Vision anthology, was made by a bunch of different creators, whereas the What If series has one creative team. Maybe that's why they're doing it week by week, and also they do connect at the end, so maybe that's why they're doing it week by week. But yeah, they dropped all these episodes in the middle of this week, where so there's other genre stuff going on right now. So Foundations on Apple Plus premiered yesterday. They dropped 2 episodes. C on Apple Plus also dropped. So there's I feel like they know, or they have a sense of when things are being dropped by competitors. They should probably space these things out so to maximize the possibility that people can actually see them. Because there was no reason, given that they knew when things are being dropped, that Apple and Disney dropped the Star Wars and also the Foundation stuff this week. Maybe they're trying to compete head to head with each other. But even putting a week between those 2 things probably would have made both of them meant that people have seen both of those things, because like I said, I saw the 2 episodes of Foundation and I opted to see those instead of the Star Wars Vision stuff because I don't have infinite time. So
right, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So I mean, it's also very strange in that they did drop everything all at once for Visions, maybe because, like you said, Nathan, that they are doing it from the standpoint of these are not like Disney related, like affiliated people. Maybe, I don't know, but I would have assumed that they would have done a weekly thing on a Friday, just like what they did with Bad Batch, and then and then it will kind of streamline right into maybe they give a break and then they'll go right into Book of Boba Fett, at the end there, but they had a model that kind of worked in some ways, but maybe they just try to compete with each other, like you said, that they're trying to go in direct competition. But no one knows anything anyway because they don't release any of the rating stuff a month afterwards. So it doesn't make sense to me as to why they would be doing all that unless they have internal analytics that says, oh yeah, Star Wars is more successful than Foundations on Apple TV Plus. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know why they make those decisions as they made, and why this is going back to why they did Doom Patrol, at the same time when Titans is ending, close to ending, why did they just kind of wait till Titans has ended and then start Doom Patrol? And so it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any other genre stuff coming out in the next couple of weeks. So Doom Patrol could have waited until the Titans has ended, or maybe debuted the last week that Titans ended. So you got the last episode of Titans, and you got the three episodes of Doom Patrol. So in 4 weeks they could have done. In 4 weeks they could have done that, and they wouldn't have hit up against Foundations being debuting, and they wouldn't have hit up against Visions being debuting. So I really like Doom Patrol. That's why I took out the time to actually watch it. But I imagine a lot of people haven't watched it yet.
No, I haven't either. So that's why I've been doing the What If and then the Titans. So it's like those are my shows right now. So they could have stuff that you're watching. Like you're watching a lot more than I am right now.
Yeah, they should have spaced these things out. Because I think the next genre stuff coming out is maybe Hawkeye in like November.
Yeah.
In November, I know there's a lot of genre stuff coming out in the movie theaters. Like there's Venom coming out very soon, and I think it's next month. Venom next month or November. It might be next month. It's next month.
No. It's supposed to be October 2nd. The last time I checked, I don't know if they pushed it back to November.
No,
because that's too close to Eternals. So
right.
I don't know.
It's no. They brought after Shang-Chi released and it did pretty well. What they did is they brought Venom up, so it's gonna debut in October. Then Eternals is going to be in November, and then Spider-Man No Way Home is going to be in December. So that's what's happening in the movie theaters. But on television, I don't think anything else is coming on. Any other genre stuff is going to be on television except for Hawkeye and maybe The Mandalorian. But I haven't heard any. I haven't seen.
No, the Book of Boba Fett is going to be in.
But I haven't
December.
I haven't seen any advertisements for that, so it may or may not happen. So all these shows that dropped this week could have spread things out a little bit better, a little bit more over the next couple weeks, and they would have. I think they all would have done better than they did this week.
I mean, the only thing that I would guess is that they're trying to clear it out for Dune on HBO Max, because I think they're really marketing Dune to be like the big.
Yeah.
You know, Dune is kind of like, Dune is kind of like it depends on your taste, So I don't know.
Right. That is definitely genre stuff as well. I was actually marking in my head all the comic book stuff, but there's also at the end of the year we're going to get Matrix Revolutions, and we're also going to get Dune, like you said. So those are two major genre things as well. But they're also movies. They're movies. They're not television shows. Right. So they could have pushed these television shows further out, because I can't think of any in my head. I know that the Katie Sackhoff show is coming back. The Netflix show is coming back. And I also know that the Netflix show Lost in Space is coming back. Maybe this. So that's the only other genre stuff that on television that I know is coming back in the next couple months. Maybe also Stranger Things as well. So maybe they didn't want to compete with that stuff. But I mean, Netflix seems to be like on a separate track.
They're like dominating everything in streaming, because they put out a movie every week. So
so you can't really push things off to wait for Netflix, because Netflix is always releasing things. But they could have pushed things off to wait for other streaming services, so they weren't head to head with HBO. Didn't have to be head to head with Apple Plus, which was head to head with Disney Plus this week. With their genre stuff, I think people would have seen a bunch of their stuff, all their stuff, if they had spread it out a little bit. But I'm not a studio executive, so yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, we've gone on a little bit past Titans. This is a kind of a tangent, but do you have any last thoughts about this episode, or we? I guess.
Yeah, I think definitely, like you said, Nathan, it's gotten better. Mm-hmm. I think that hopefully, like I said last week, hopefully they just keep the momentum going, and they don't pull off like a Lady Vic episode or the first Blackfire episode.
Yeah.
Hopefully they don't do any of that, for the rest of the season. And I think that if they don't do that, I think that it's pretty solid. Except for those 2 episodes, I think that fairly solid overall. I mean,
fairly
although
solid.
the beginning part
yeah.
with Bruce Wayne was kind of weird too. So but
It's
it is what it is.
it's
Kind of like you said, uneven.
for me. It's been an okay episode, okay season. It's been uneven, like as you echoed there. But like I I'm hoping that they bring in the plane for a landing. It's 4 episodes. The way that they could write this. I mean, Rachel comes back from Themyscira. Dawn is back from Themyscira. They're gonna wrap up. They're gonna wrap up the Red Hood thing because now Donna knows what's happening because Hank clued her in. Brought her up to speed. The only person that needs to be brought up to speed now is Rachel when she gets back, and she can get, and she'll get she'll be brought up to speed very quickly with Gar, because Gar has a really good relationship with her. And then they'll wrap up that what's going on with thing. I thought with Jason, I thought that they were going to bring Hank back to try to make the redemption for Jason better or easier. But if Hank is still dead, I don't still don't see how they're going to redeem. How they're going to redeem Jason, because
we'll see. We'll see how it happens. I think that that's going to be the next 4 episodes to kind of see how that happens, the redemption arc.
Yeah. All right. So that is what we think of the episode, but we want to hear what you guys think. So please comment down below. And like and subscribe for more content like this. And we will see you next week.